This podcast is brought to you by HealthRangerStore.com. Lab-tested clean foods and supplements for immune function, long-term storage, and survival applications. Every purchase helps fund this free speech video platform. Thank you for your support. In a survival scenario, you don't want to make a lot of noise when you are sighting in a rifle. And so I'd like to give you a very simple way to sight in your rifle using one shot. And this is a method that I use all the time now. Now that I know it, and I didn't do it this way before, I did it the hard way. So this is going to be very easy. This is Mike Adams here, the Health Ranger. Welcome to another episode of Prep with Mike. And that's the website also where I now have these podcasts and exclusive video content, and also lists of preparedness products that I recommend that are in stock right now, ready to ship from the Health Ranger store. Just go to the website prepwithmike.com and you will see the podcasts and the videos and the product listings. So now, getting to the one-shot sight-in, here's what you do. It requires that you have some target. Let's say it's at 100 yards, but you could also do this at 50 yards, depending on what range you want to sight in your rifle at. A lot of people like to sight in rifles at like an AR-15 at 50 yards because typically it's good. Then because of the arc, it's also then sighted in at 250 yards. Some people in the military will sight it in at 25 yards, which is typically also good at 300 yards or so, thereabouts. Personally, I like to sight them in at about 50 yards because I like those ballistics and the engagement ranges and so on. But it's up to you. You pick whatever range you want. Anyway, at that range, you're going to have a target, typically a paper target. Well, sometimes you can use steel if you have a fresh coat of paint on it and you know where your rounds are hitting. Now, for this method, you're going to need a stabilizer, which usually means just some bean bags or some socks filled with sand, or a shooting bag or whatever you want to use. Some people use a shooting rest. And it's not necessary for taking the shot. It's only necessary for adjusting it, which I'll explain. So basically, you take your rifle, you turn on your red dot or whatever you're going to sight in. Maybe you have an optic, a magnified optic. Maybe you have a red dot sight. Whatever it is, you line that up with the center of your target and you pull the trigger. And this round then hits somewhere on the paper or somewhere on the target. Maybe it's down to the right, 6 inches down and 6 inches to the right. Now, by the way, if you're off the paper, well, then you're going to have to use another round. So you can do things. I want you to be on the paper before you take this shot. So you can use bore sighting, or you can use a laser sight, like a round that has a laser in it, and you can dial it in to at least get it on paper first. So make sure you're on paper before you take that shot. Now then, when you take that shot again, the round's going to go somewhere on that paper. Here's what you do. You strap your rifle down to where it's not going to move. So maybe it's just resting on bean bags or shoot bags, or you might actually strap it in with bungee cords or whatever. You make it so that it's not going to move. And then you align the rifle so that your sights, your crosshairs of your sights, are right on the center of the target that you were shooting at. In other words, you sight the rifle where you were trying to shoot. And then you adjust the scope as you're looking through the scope to move the crosshairs of the scope to the point of impact that you just created. You got that? So in other words, you're moving the sights to match up with the hole in the paper. And when you're done with that, now if you were to re-aim the rifle and put the rifle back on the center of the target and pull the trigger, that round's going to go in the center of the target because you've adjusted the sights to the hole. And the hole tells you, well, that's where the gun wants to shoot. So you're adjusting the sights to the hole instead of doing something like, oh, let's try 3 clicks to the left and take another shot. And then it moves, 2 inches. And you're like, oh, there's 3 more clicks. And you take another shot and it moves a few inches. Oh, we adjusted too many clicks. We've all done that. We've all wasted 20 rounds or whatever, sighting in some rifle when you really only need one shot. The key is that when you're doing that adjustment of the optic, of the scope, you need to lock that rifle down so that it's not moving. And you're not cradling it in your shoulder. You're not really wanting to touch it except just to look through the scope gently, but don't nudge the rifle, don't move it. And you're just then clicking the scope to move the scope crosshairs to the hole in the paper. And that's the simplest, easiest way to do this. Now, I mean, there are other ways. If you really know your scope well, you know it's like 10 clicks per mil, for example. And then you know that it's roughly at 100 yards, then that comes out to something like roughly three clicks per inch on the target or whatever, because a lot of targets are designated in inches, which is always a pain in the ass when you're using mils in the scope, which is a metric system. I'd much rather have a target that's in, centimeters, frankly. But there aren't very many of those available in America because everybody's using inches. Oh, my goodness, we really need the metric system when it comes to long-range shooting. I'd rather shoot in mils and meters because it all makes more sense. But some people like to shoot with MOAs and yards, which is just insane. It makes no sense. But whatever. Everybody's got different types of scopes. But if you really know your scope and you can click them all in and you can trust that the clicks are doing what they're supposed to do, because not all scopes have reliable clicks, then you could take one shot and you could just adjust it and click it in and then hope that you're correct. But you'd really need to take a second shot to confirm all that, wouldn't you? So now that's a 2-shot sight in. But if you just move the crosshairs of the scope to the hole after you took the first shot, then you don't need a second shot. You've already essentially confirmed it through the laws of physics, as long as you don't accidentally bump the rifle or something or move it, So that's how you do it. And when you're in a situation where, the apocalypse, the collapse, survival, you don't want to typically announce to people that, number one, you have a lot of ammo. So you don't want to be rolling out a bunch of rounds, firing off a bunch of shots to sight something in. And secondly, it's very hard for people to locate you with one gunshot. But if you fire a second and a third round and so on, then it's very easy for others to get a directional guess of where you're shooting from. Whereas one shot is very hard for people to pinpoint. So if you can limit your rifle sight in to just one shot, it's going to be safer for you. You're going to draw a lot less attention, and people will have no clue where that came from. And the other thing is, if you really need a second confirmation shot, try it like 6 hours later when people have stopped listening for, or I guess that might be 6 minutes later, given the short attention spans people have. But definitely you could wait a few hours and then take that confirmation shot. And, you don't have to sight in a rifle with multiple shots right now. You could spread those shots out over time, and people aren't going to be paying attention because they've got things to do, right? So that's how you do it. Now check out more podcasts and videos with practical how-to information at my new website, prepwithmike.com, which again also features real-time listings of in-stock preparedness products such as storable food, first aid, communications, tools, all kinds of things from the Health Ranger store. Everything you see on that page is in stock today and ready to ship because, a lot of things are out of stock now, and it's kind of frustrating going through our shopping cart. It's like everything's out of stock. I know. I actually requested this to be created because I had the same problem myself. I was shopping for friends and family members, and I was like, everything's out of stock in my own store. This is crazy. And so I built this page, or I requested this page to be built. I didn't actually code it, but I requested it so that we can have a page of in-stock items ready to ship today. And that's what you find at prepwithmike.com. Thank you for your support. A global reset is coming, and that's why I've recorded a new 9-hour audiobook. It's called The Global Reset Survival Guide. You can download it for free by subscribing to the NaturalNews.com email newsletter, which is also free. I'll describe how the monetary system fails. I also cover emergency medicine and first aid and what to buy to help you avoid infections. So download this guide. It's free. It's my gift to you simply because I want like-minded people to survive.